Yeah, YouTubers, Tasman here, bringing you another episode of Learn JavaScript with Foundry. And in our last episode, we talked about very basic about functions and how they function, how useful they are. Um, and we learned that, yeah, they can make it so that having a lot of code that repeats itself, we can actually create a function and store that code that repeats itself, and just have calls to that function multiple times, which is what we did down here. Now, since then, I actually came back through and I added all the different standard Ds in a D&D dice. We have the 100, 20, 12, 10, 8, 6, and down a little lower is the 4. And as you can see, that's quite a bit of space of typing. I mean, we have a bunch of space here as well, but the nice thing about this is if we need to change something, we change it in one spot and it takes care of it for the rest of your thing. But I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, wouldn't it be nice if somehow, because everything here is the same, the console log rolling D, that's the same in all of them. The bracket, the quote there, the math floor, all the way up to this 100 is exactly the same, and this is exactly the same everywhere. Wouldn't it be nice if there was some way that we could actually make this value be a variable? And guess what? You're in luck. We can do that. Because then all we have to do is pass in that variable, and we only have to have one function, and it will automatically tell me this other information. So that's what we're going to do next. We are going to learn how to pass data or receive data, function receiving data. I don't know how to say it. Let's just say passing data. Oh, I'm in the wrong thing again. PAS, passing data to a function. A function. Okay, so how do we do that, you might say? Well, remember how we talked about the basic function? You write the word function, the name of the function, parameters for the function. There you go. The parameters are what we pass into the function. Wow, I misspelled that too. So let's go ahead and instead of creating a roll 20, roll 100, roll 4, 12, 10, all that stuff, we're going to create a single die rolling function. So we're going to call this function function, and let's just call it roll dice. And this is going to expect something to be passed into it. So what are those numbers representing? Those are the sides of the dice. So I'm going to go ahead and just call this side or sides. And there we go. We have that. And then we have our function itself, right? We can actually go grab any one of these now and maybe take the console log, just something like that, do a C there, and we can paste this in here, and now we can doctor this how we want. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to turn this into a tick mark and this one into a tick mark. That way we can use our what's it called? I can't remember the name of it. I can't remember the name of it. It'll come to me later. Expression string, maybe? I don't know. So it's the thing where we do the $sign and then our little ticks like that. And we can pass in sides, S-I-D-E-S, like that. And then right here, where we're doing the math and stuff, we can simply replace this with S-I-D-E-S. And that's it. That is all we have to do to have it output all this info. Instead of having all these functions, we've taken all 7 of these functions and turned them into one function that's going to do the exact same thing by simply passing it a value. So if we copy this and we paste it underneath, and then we start putting in the sides. So now, actually, I guess we can't copy this after all, because we called it a different function. So we'll just do that and do Control C and Control V, Control V, Control V, Control V, and Control V. And we're going to do a 20. Then we did a 100. Then we did another 20. Then we did a 4. Then we did a 6. And then we did a 20. So now if we run this, there we go. Look at that. It's exactly the same as this. However, we have only this little bit of code now that does it all, which is considerably less than this and this. So now, because we're able to pass information to the function, we don't have to have a function for each of the dice sides named after the side. We can actually pass a value that we want, and we can even pass other values. For example, if we said roll dice, and let's say we somehow have a 17-sided dice, right? We can actually run this. So we'll go and clear that, run this, and you'll see we're now rolling a D17 and got a 5 on it. Not very good. So we can do that. Now, one thing is things are always prone to error, but what if on accident someone in our code somewhere did roll dice and they forgot to put a value in here? So this is now going to pass nothing to this, which means this will be undefined or not a number, and we're not going to get the results that we're expecting, right? So if we run this, now you see we're getting rolling D undefined, because that's the D17 part here, and the value we get for that, or the actual roll, is not a number, so none. So how can we protect against this? Well, let's go ahead and we're gonna call another area here. I'm gonna go grab that console log real quick too. This is called default values. D-E-F-A-U-L-T. So default values. And basically, we're going to be able to take, I'm only going to take that one, I think. And we're just going to put it underneath here. So if we pass nothing into our function, I also wanted to grab this real quick. See. Right now, we get this not a number, right? Well, to fix that, we can actually say, hey, sides, if I don't get something, has a default value. And one thing you'll notice is we don't actually have to put let in here. It's actually, I believe it's not going to like it if we have let in there, because it's not expected. It's kind of defaulting, saying anything listed in here is going to be things. So if we execute that, we're going to get an error because it's saying, don't we see? Well, there's two possible errors. One is let is undefined, and let is also a keyword. So we don't need our let or const or var in here. It knows that these are going to be defined variables. And usually, I think with the later versions of Java, it will automatically do them as let. That way they are locked into this code scope right here, right? So if we want a default value, we simply say equals and 20. So now if I run this and there happens to be a default or a roll dice with no value, we're actually going to default it as a D20. As you can see here, a D20 rolled a 6. So really handy sometimes if there's a way. Sometimes you might have programmatically a function being called, so there will always be a value. But if by chance there's the possibility that a function will be called without a value, and you don't want to have it throw an error or something like that, you can give it a default value. And I think that pretty much covers that. I don't know if there's more I could really go into that. So now we've learned how to put something into a function, but how do we get something out? Because if I'm in this function right here, actually maybe I'll do it with a new one. I'm going to create a new function. We're going to call it roll dice 2. Let's go ahead and do this, do that, do... actually, maybe instead of getting, let's do retur and returning data from a function function. Okay, so let's say, for example, we have, we'll just take this for now and do a V. And we talked about scope and how inside of block of code, which is signified by these guys right here, that everything in there is local to that scope. And outside cannot see that scope. An example of that is if maybe we had in here let A equal, I don't know, warrior, fighter, or something. I don't know. Trying to think of something that will be D&D related. If I try and access A out here and say console.log A, we will get most definitely an error saying that A has never been defined, even though we clearly defined A right inside of here. However, once this function closes, it's closed. So what we can do is we can actually, that looks really wrong to me for a reason. For some reason, we can actually return a value out of our function, and that way we can assign it or something. So let's, instead of this, here's what I'm going to do. We're going to go ahead and only do our math here in the function. So that means we're getting rid of all of this, and that's there, that's there, that's there, and that one right there. And we're going to return this, return. And that's all you have to do is say return and that value. So now if I say roll dice, this is going to be roll dice 2, because we'll also get an error because we already have a dice. So if we do 2 here, and if we don't give it anything, right now actually we're not going to see anything because we're not outputting anywhere. So we can come in here. There's a couple things we could do. One is we could, because we're going to pass in sides, but in our thing, we need to also note what sides were passed in, because all we're getting back is the value that was rolled on that die, right? So we're going to create a, let's do const, because this won't change. So const sides equals, and let's say a 25-sided dice. I don't know. Then what we're going to do is we're going to call our sides here. We're going to call it with sides. Now, one important thing here is just because I have this sides here doesn't mean it's going to be the sides in here, because this is going to look at itself for sides. So it's not going to look at this, which is why I have to pass it in. So let's see. So if I'm just trying to think what I want to do. So, all right, I know what I'll do. So what we're going to do is we're going to also create a variable here, const, and we'll call this result. So this is the result of the roll, and we're going to say equals roll dice sides. And then we're going to actually console log our result, right? And we're also going to have sides in there. So we need to go grab our console log info here. Only to here. And do conso, wait. Yes, this is what I wanted to do. Console dot log, and we're going to go and put in that. So this is going to say D sides, and that's going to grab this sides right here to say 25. Then we're going to do a comma, and then all we have to do is stick in results, right? RESULT. So now we're returning the value that is rolled into our results. We're assigning it to our results variable, and here we're going to simply output the results variable. Although, is that how I did it? Yeah, that's how I did it, just with a colon. So if we execute this, now you can see rolling a D25, got a 19. Now we can't, the reason we can't necessarily, for this example, just put 25 here is because then it won't know what this value is here. Because that's just a 25 and we won't have sides declared anywhere. And the result is simply going to be the value that was rolled. So in this case, we actually have to have the sides be a variable, a constant in this case. Then we're passing that to our function. Our function is returning the roll result, and then we're outputting what we got right there. So another way we could do this, we don't actually have to have, the result equals part. We can actually take the entire function and just shove it right there. Excuse me. So if we wanted, we could actually take this whole thing, hit Control C, Control V, and we could actually just take this roll sides, do Control C there, and replace the results right there, because it's returning a value, and the console log can receive that value and simply output it to the console. So now if we go and clear this and we run it, you'll see once again we get the same thing. Our first one was a 14, our second one was a D10. So those are kind of the basic functions of a function and why functions are very handy. There are various types of functions that we're going to talk about. There's also a different name for functions. In our last video, we talked about, this is the object and this is a method. However, a method is basically a function within an object. So it's kind of a special function. And we'll be going into those later. So don't worry if you don't understand that. But there are three main types of functions we will be going over probably in the next video, because we're almost at 20 minutes. We're going to go over, we've gone over these functions, which is just your basic function. We're going to go over what's called function expressions, and we're going to go over what are called arrow functions. They all basically do the same thing. The difference is that I don't know if I can give just a difference with them right off the top of my head. We'll let you figure out the difference as we explain them. So that will do for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up down below. Aside from that, comment, like, and subscribe. Click the notification bell. Follow me on Twitter. Check out my Discord and my other channels. The whole spiel. Tell other people about my channel. Have them check it out. If they like what they see, they can sub. And that is it, my friends. Until next time, I'll be seeing you later. Bye.